What I became more like connected to though was hearing people get super defensive about whether or not they listened to their content. And I can hear clinicians say that they don't listen back to their work almost as if it would be shameful to listen back to their work. I never listen. I never listen again. It's so embarrassing. Like, why is it embarrassing? You went on a podcast and you're hoping to reach millions of people and you don't even want to listen to it. Of course you want to listen to it. You hope, right? I hope you want to listen to it. But we say it as if that's the right answer. I don't want to listen back. That's the wrong answer, actually. The right answer is I should listen to it back twice. I should plug that transcript into ChatGPT to make sure that I wasn't overly confusing, right? Like we should be dissecting the work that we put out there so that the next bit of work that we do is even better, right? That not only do a million people listen, but a million people put their hand up and say, I like her. I want to work with her. Okay. So what are you actually going to listen for? So hopefully you can see that you're leaving a lot on the table by not listening back. And I don't buy your excuse that you don't want to listen. I think you secretly do want to listen. Maybe you do secretly listen, right? But you tell people you don't listen. That would be the worst if you're lying about it. I think you should listen back to your work. But you want to listen for some like actual specific things. And I'm not saying to not listen to the content. I think the content can be helpful. Most podcasts shouldn't be much longer than 45 minutes. And so listening to the content, and let's start there, listening to the content is helpful to make sure that you said all the things you wanted to say, right? I make a list of what I want to say, especially if I'm a guest, and highlight the things that are the most pertinent. Sometimes you don't get asked the right questions for you to actually be able to say the things you want to say. But if you have a list in front of you of like the most important things that you must say, you can weave them into most conversations, or you can let the person who's interviewing know partway through that you have something that you want to share that feels a little unscripted based on what they're asking you, but is it okay with them if you just take a minute to explain this one thing? You know, depending on the level and the audience that you're talking to, sometimes the interviewer has skipped over maybe the basics of a discussion, or the question they've asked you, there's actually like a more important question that should be asked. Listening back to the content actually helps you understand, did I say what needs to be said here for this conversation to like even make sense or land properly? Or did we leave gaps and most listeners are not able to follow the sort of like bouncing ball of the conversation? Or was it mostly about one angle, and the real angle or the angle that you think is much more representative actually was diminished or wasn't mentioned at all? So listen to the content, and I always make notes. Okay, so I talked about perimenopause. Here's the things I did talk about. Gosh, I missed this, this, and this. Okay, so then the next time you go to talk about it and someone asks you a question about hormone testing, you can say, no, but also, right? And then knowing in your mind that you have forgotten to mention the tests you would run, right? Like looking back at the content can help you build better content for the next time you talk about it, and start to build this repertoire of stories, of shares, of metaphors, right? I think we really need this great bank of metaphors to be able to explain complicated topics in an easy way for people to understand. You can build that if you listen back for the actual content and make a list of the things that you missed or that you didn't get a chance to talk about or highlight. The other thing you can do is also listen for clarity on the content. So, did you talk yourself around in circles? Did you have to correct yourself at any point? Did you say something in 8 minutes that could have been said in one, right? And yes, podcast is about the dialogue, but the factual stuff probably is not the part where it's like to belabor or to spend a ton of time on. The story and the context and the questions and the way to think about the information is probably where to spend the dialogue-y time in a podcast. But listen back and say, gosh, like I really talked about this for a long time, and the last sentence was quite important, but like the middle 13 sentences were not necessary. Listening back for that kind of clarity can be quite helpful.